I'm not mad, I'm disappointed. Sure, the Reflex 2 has an upgraded optic system with a much more intelligent matrix array, and yes, it packs a new heating system which promises faster heating than ever before. And yes, it's still got all the incredible technology, auto leveling, residue detection that we come to expect from HeyGears machines. So why am I sat here with a top of the range 3D printer feeling disappointed? Well, it's because while the Reflex 2 is a massive leap forward in some ways, it's also a backward step in a couple of others. If that is, you wanted this latest release to be aimed solely at home and hobby printers. To explain that, I need to talk about the Reflex 2 in a little bit more detail. Later in the video you'll see calibration tests and stress tests of all the functions claimed in the video. I've been working with this printer now for a couple of weeks and I've tested most of the major resins that are available at launch, so you're going to see examples of all of that stuff too. Right now though, let's run through the features of the printer. The dimensions are 430 by 445 by 605mm, and the build dimensions are 234mm by 144mm by 230mm. The VAT comes in two flavours, one for the pulsing release and a standard VAT. It's similar in design to the one on the Reflex RS, and in fact the Reflex itself. Two major differences though: it's held in place with screws and there's no heating element. We're going to come back to that. One change I was really glad to see was the reintroduction of an overhead catch and that all-metal, really solid build plate, complete with pre-drilled holes to let the resin drain easier. I'm delighted to see this back on the Reflex series, but the build plate isn't all perfect, and again we're going to come to that. The biggest noticeable difference about this printer is the inclusion of a wiper arm. The wiper is very similar to that seen on the Form 4, although a little bit more basic in design. This is a massive departure from the way HeyGears have done things before. There's two flavours of wiper arm: plastic one, which is literally just there to stir the resin, and a heating one, which stirs and heats the resin. If you don't have the metal wiper fitted, there is no heating element to this printer at all. The rest of the printer is pretty much how you'd expect. If we spin it round to the side, you will see that there is now a side loading port for your resin bottles. I actually prefer this, I find it easier to use, but it won't be for everybody. If you've got space above your printer and not to the side of it, what do you do then? But the other things you'll be able to see on the side of the printer are an Ethernet port and a USB slot, as well as an SD card expansion. I've not been able to use this yet though. Spin it around to the back, and on the rear of the printer you'll see the on-off rocker, the power lead, the air line for the PRM unit, and the controller port for the PRM unit. I'm going to cover the PRM unit a little bit later in the video, but for now I need you to know that it's a brand new redesigned quieter PRM2 unit. But there are some flaws that I think you should know about, so stick with me and we'll get to it. A few comments around the overall construction of the printer as well. All metal body, really solid, frankly exactly what you'd expect from a machine that costs this much. Which is a neat little segue into how much this machine actually does cost. So £1,800 for a printer? Yeah, I know, that's way more money than you should be spending on a printer if you're just printing little models at home. If that's you, hobbyist, home user, stop right here, forget about the Reflex 2, and go and buy yourself a Reflex RS. It's about £600 on sale right now, and you will not regret it. Honestly, it's one of the best home printers I've used. I've raved about it before. It's fast, it's consistent, and it's far less painful on the wallet. And if I've just saved you 10 minutes of YouTube watching, then, well, before you disappear, like and subscribe to the channel. You're welcome. But for everyone else, the professional studios, the small run manufacturers, the people using their printer to print actual production parts, that is who the Reflex 2 is for. Now for the good news, and there is plenty of that too. The new light engine, or I guess the screen and the UV thingy that puts out all the light, is seriously impressive. In my testing, the average UV output per centimetre squared was 17 milliwatts. That's massive. That's comparable with the Formlabs Form 4, way higher than you would see in consumer resins, which means it's more than capable of printing these highly technical industrial resins that you see and need for manufacture. Gone are the old Fresnel lenses, replaced with a much more compact, uniform light that delivers excellent exposure consistency. So who does it compete with? Well, the most obvious rival is Formlabs Form 4. Now, I've used and reviewed the Formlabs Form 4 previously, and I really liked that printer. It is honestly just beautiful to use. Everything about it screams premium. It's just flawlessly designed and just really, really lovely in a way that's hard to articulate while talking about it on screen. Team that up with an insane range of resins and a customer service package that essentially just holds your hand through every print, and you can see why it commands such a high price. £3,500 just to start with, and it only goes up from there. The Reflex 2, however, is £1,800 retail. It's even cheaper than that in the sales, which is way under half the price. So why the big gap? Well, partly it's because the Formlabs Form 4 is way overpriced, but it's also because to get the price point where it's at, HeyGears have had to cut some corners. Whether you think that corner cutting is valid is up to you, but there's certainly some missing polish that Formlabs users will absolutely notice. Still, in terms of pure performance, the Reflex 2 is still punching way above its weight. So one of the major advantages Formlabs has over HeyGears is its vast portfolio of resins that are available. And this is where the story gets a little bit more complicated, because HeyGears make their own resins, and the Reflex 2 is launching with support for a fairly limited range, especially if you're using the new PRM2 module, which by the way is one of the Reflex 2's headline features. With the PRM2 installed, you can currently use PAH270, which is a heat-resistant moulding resin, which is great for tooling and casting, PAE10, which is a transparent elastic type resin, and PAU20, which is a general purpose tooling resin for parts production, that sort of thing. All of those are available supported with the PRM2. But that's it. If you don't use the PRM2, you can print with more of HeyGears materials. PAU11, PAH10,
PARP10, PAC10, PAWR10, PAF10 and PAS10.
But then don't forget, if you're not using the PRM unit, you lose all the advantages of using that PRM unit, or faster print speeds and finer supports. So it's a bit of a trade-off, and it's clear the resin library isn't complete yet. HeyGears have said they're working to expand support for their entire range of resins to be used with the Reflex 2, but currently at launch, it's not there yet. So now I'm going to jump back into the hardware side of things, and again it's a little bit of a mixed bag here. There's some great design and lots of quality components like the screen and the ball screw and all that sort of good stuff. But there's also some questionable decisions which sort of make you go, why? Let's start with the resin loading bay. Users of the original Reflex complained that top loading port, the inside of it would get all filled with the drips from your resin cup, and it was basically impossible to clean. So the side loading bay, aside from being just easier to use for me, is actually a massive improvement here. But what could have made it even better is if they'd made the little ridge inside slope inwards towards the printer. Therefore, that would mean any resin that dripped onto there would just run straight back into the printer. As it stands now, any resin that drips on that has the potential to run straight out the side of the printer like it did with me, which frankly is really annoying. And yes, that is user error, because really what I should have done is lifted up the bottle, waited a few seconds for the resin to drain out, then put a bit of tissue underneath it and lifted it out, but frankly, come on. Good design is supposed to solve problems, but bad design makes problems, and this is definitely on the bad design side of things. And then there's the autofill system itself. It's been completely redesigned, and that is a great thing. The flow rate from the resin bottles is much faster now, which is a massive advantage, particularly when you're using thick, gloopy resins like the PAU20, for example. The downside is that the resin filling cap has been completely redesigned. And because the resin filling cap has been completely redesigned, you now can't use the resin filling caps that come on the bottles. Now HeyGears are supposed to be releasing the new filling cap as a separate part, so you can buy those and add those on, and no doubt when they release the new resins for the Reflex 2, those will start trickling out too. But again, at launch, that part isn't available, so you end up having to rinse and wash your resin cap every time you switch resins, which again is another step. Frustrating. Next up, the build plate. Now, I like the build plate. It's an all metal construction, which means I can just chuck it into my wash station, rinse the whole jolly lot, and then take it out and put it back in the printer. Love that. Where it falls down slightly is the pre-drilled holes and the fact it's a flat plate. Now, the pre-drilled holes are a good thing and a bad thing. The good thing, the resin drains faster and there's less sort of peel forces on the plate itself. That's great. The downside is it means you can't print direct to plate without marking the bottom of all your parts, which is frustrating. And the flat plate, well, hopefully you know what the problem with a flat plate is. A flat plate means that whatever sits on top of that flat plate just sits there. What it should have is a bevel, so that resin just drains off. You can, however, hook the plate onto the screw so any parts can just drain off while you're waiting, but again, that's an additional step. A bit more thought and a bit more investment in ease of use and how people actually use this printer rather than just engineering a solution. But being flat, it means the resin just sits and pools on top, which means if you are foolish enough to take the resin plate out, it's going to drip everywhere. And because the internals of the Reflex have got lots of new little greebles all over the place, there's lots of places for resin to just collect in little crevices, which again just adds to the fuss and the stickiness and the general mess of resin printing, which is something I like to try and avoid wherever possible. It's not the end of the world, it's just a bit messy for a professional machine. And while we're on the user experience, there's still no camera, there's still no remote print controls like there is on most other major print brands now, and there's a menu system which is borderline chaotic. I mean, seriously, these are all little things, but the little things add up to a worse user experience, and it's my job to point them out, so there you go. Something that deserves its own section to talk about though is that wiper arm. Now the Reflex 2 comes with a new wiper unit. It's a completely different way of doing things if you've never used a printer like the Form 4. In theory, it's a brilliant idea. Some of HeyGears resins, particularly the industrial ones and ceramic ones like PAH270, have lots and lots of sediments inside, so they settle out really fast. And so having a mixing arm, which keeps those sediments in suspension while you're printing, is basically absolutely essential. That's one of the reasons for the mixing arm. And as standard, the Reflex 2 comes with a plastic mixing arm. However, there's also a heated arm option, which if you live in a cold country like mine in the UK, where it can get down to sort of 5 degrees in my workshop, it's basically absolutely essential to have some sort of heating element. Now the Reflex 2's heating element is inside that wiper arm. Again, good things and bad things. The good side, it heats up really quickly and that wiper arm keeps the resin vat heated really evenly. Sorry for the janky footage here, but hopefully this gives you an idea of the heating process that goes on. The downside is the HeyGears don't really seem to have included any sensors at all in that wiper arm. I could literally take the wiper arm out mid-print and the printer didn't even notice and carried on using it throughout. A little bit worse than that, I know some users who've been testing this where a printer's failed and dropped a part into the vat and that wiper arm has carried on sweeping that vat to and from, which essentially caused a little tsunami of resin to spill over the sides of the vat, all over the printer, all over the desks. Now I will quickly say that HeyGears have made an update to this system to prevent anything like this happening again, and I never had this issue in the first place, but I will link some other videos down below so you can go and check out some other creators and see their experience too, because I think that's probably the fairest way to do this.
And it shows me that maybe this printer has been pushed to market a little bit too quickly. But, and I'll say this to sort of counterbalance that argument a little bit, in the years I have been working with HeyGears, they've always come good with fixes, and in fact lots of the bugs that were present when I first started printing this with this printer have already been fixed. So I've got confidence that HeyGears will support their customers and will fix some of these issues going forward, but as of right now, these are some of the issues with the Reflex 2.
But obviously I've done a lot of product testing too.
So while I'm showing off all the models on screen, I'll just tell you a little bit about where you can get some of these models, and that is on my Patreon. My patrons are absolutely incredible folks, heroes who keep the channel running and keep my morale up. You are all legends, you know who you are. If you are interested in joining the Patreon and accessing the library of over 70 STLs with new STLs added every single month, there are links to do that down below, and you can do so from as little as £3 a month. Back to the video. Once I iron out the early quirks, the Reflex 2 produced excellent, clean, sharp production quality parts. PAU20, I printed out some painting handles, which I'm developing at the moment with a friend of mine. And straight off the plate they're gorgeous, but with a quick sand they feel genuinely production ready. I don't quite know how to top coat them though, so if you've got any ideas about how to do that, then Let me know in the comments. You would expect a printer like this to be able to print really good transparent parts, and this printer doesn't disappoint on that score. I tried coated and uncoated, and I was really pleased with the results of both. I also ran some calibration tests, spheres, vertical towers, a whole variety of different surface tests, and even an anti-aliasing test. So if you want to know what anti-aliasing looks like, you can see it here with it off and with it on. I was really impressed. So what's the takeaway here? At 1800 quid, the HeyGears Reflex 2 isn't perfect. Far from it. But in my experience testing all this stuff, the perfect printer does not exist. It's missing some of the polish of more expensive rivals like the Formlabs Form 4, but it costs half the price. And some areas still feel a little bit unfinished. At 1800 quid, the HeyGears Reflex 2 feels a little less polished than it probably should. There's a few signs that it was rushed to market, but it's also under half the price of the Formlabs Form 4, and it produces prints that absolutely rival it. HeyGears back-end support is excellent, if not the same incredibly high caliber that Formlabs offer. Their hardware quality is really, really high, as you can see from the testing that I did in the video. And after working with them for a couple of years, I'm pretty confident they're going to fix any of the teething issues that I found in the video. And of course, I'll be doing a long-term test on this printer, and I'll come back to you in 3 or 4 months' time with my results from that. So if you're not already, do subscribe. So if you're a small studio or a professional user who can handle a little bit early adopter pain in order to get a special price, then I would say the Reflex 2 is a seriously powerful tool for the money. If you're just printing miniatures at home, stick with the Reflex RS. You will not be sorry. I've popped a review of the Reflex RS on the screen if you want to go and check out that one. As always, this channel is slightly supported by affiliate links. You can find all the links to the printers down below, as well as links to my Patreons and Discords and all that good stuff. So, I've been James, this is RisingApe Minis, and I'll see you next time.